Yeah, it's been a challenging year, but it was to be expected for me, to be honest. I'm joining a new team, a new culture, and I'm well aware that progress takes time. So it's been a year of foundation building, and it's been harder this year to build that foundation where I am, but I do feel like we're progressing, and I feel like it's putting me I feel like I'm getting to a place now where I'm well placed for next year, and that's more important. We're not fighting for a championship now, so no, apart from right now, our job is to try and get the best results to win, to do the best in the Constructors' Championship. The driver's position, no one cares really. I don't care really about 5th or 6th or anything like that. It's more about trying to keep the Constructors' title, 2nd place for the team. But I think next year is the year where it'll be a car I've had something to do helping develop. So I'm hoping it's a good year.
What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, has said a phrase that could be the breaking point for Ferrari in the 2025 season? Is it a war cry or an admission of defeat? Stay, because what Hamilton said before the Brazilian GP changes absolutely everything. In the hours before the 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix, the paddock came to a halt. Something unusual hung in the air. It wasn't the roar of the engines or the usual intensity of the engineers running from one pit to another. It was the weight of a statement. A phrase that, more than surprising, caused an emotional shock among journalists, rivals, and fans. We don't come to survive. We come to dominate. Lewis Hamilton, accompanied by Frédéric Vasseur, head of the Ferrari team, not only broke the usual script of politically correct answers, he completely rewrote it. In a team like Ferrari, where every word is measured, every movement is observed with a magnifying glass, this type of statement is not accidental. It's a calculated move, an internal message as well as an external one. This is not only a show of trust towards the Tifosi. It's about lighting a spark in a team that has been navigating technical disappointments and a sea of strategic doubts since the season began. The surprise, however, does not end there. Because in that same conversation, Hamilton, when asked directly if he saw it possible to get on the podium for the remainder of the year, responded with a resounding no, brief, without nuances, no excuses, just one word that, due to its frankness, resonated louder than any stopwatch number. A statement that breaks with the typical narrative of the athlete who never gives up, but that, in the case of Hamilton, does not sound like resignation. It sounds like something else. It sounds like someone who is looking reality in the face, but who has not given up. And this is where the real emotional conflict breaks out. What happens when the most successful driver in modern history publicly admits that he sees no podium options, but at the same time makes a promise of dominance? The apparent contradiction is, in reality, the reflection of a strategic mind. Hamilton is not talking to rivals. He's talking to his team. He is reminding them that the season is not just about immediate results, but about long-term building. You're inviting them to leave point anxiety behind and focus on the process that will make them strong, not on an illusion of instant redemption. The scene, for those who observe it carefully, is almost cinematic. The 7-time world champion, in one of his most challenging stages, using the word as his main weapon. Not from arrogance, but from transparency. Showing an emotional maturity that transcends sports. And that's Hamilton's true strength at this stage of his career. He doesn't need to win every race to have an impact. His mere presence, his ability to challenge narratives, to say what others are silent, make him an inevitable protagonist. And let's not forget the historical context. Brazil is not just any circuit for Hamilton. It was there, at Interlagos, where he signed legendary moments, where he sealed titles, where in 2021, under almost impossible conditions, he executed one of the most epic comebacks of his career. Returning to that track with the red Ferrari suit is not a minor detail. It is a symbolic burden. It is the return of a warrior to a battlefield he knows very well. But this time with a new army that is still learning to march at the pace he needs. This tension between the glorious past, the raw present, and the uncertain future is precisely what makes this moment so powerful. It's not just about a pilot. It is a story that is still being written. And every word Hamilton says, every gesture, every statement, is not a closed chapter. It is an open door to what may be the most unexpected turn of the year. Hamilton's statement could have remained a symbolic gesture. One more phrase in the ocean of headlines prior to each race. But not. What makes his words have real weight is the technical context behind them. Because what is happening inside Ferrari is not simply a change of attitude. It is a silent transformation that has been brewing in the Maranello laboratories. Inside sources agree that it wasn't a single update that lit the spark. There was no magic new spoiler. It was not a revolutionary flat bottom. What happened was much more subtle, and, at the same time, much more powerful. What Ferrari rediscovered was the essence of tuning. What in Formula One is known as setup. An art that goes beyond aerodynamics and engine maps. A process where every millimeter in the height of the car, every degree in the towing of the wheels, every click in the differentials, can make the difference between being competitive or being irrelevant. In weeks of almost obsessive work, engineers from the Italian team reanalyzed dozens of variables ignored or misinterpreted at the beginning of the season. They reviewed correlations between the wind tunnel and runway data. They retested combinations of suspensions that had been ruled out by rigid protocols. They recalibrated the use of ERS not only with maximum performance in mind, but also how that deployment affected tire temperatures lap after lap. And it was there, in that almost artisanal process, where they began to see results. The stability of the SF25 improved. Power delivery became more progressive. The drivers, especially Hamilton, began to feel something they had not felt in a long time: control. This level of improvement is not visible on the timesheets. It doesn't generate spectacular headlines. But in Formula One, gaining half a second per lap doesn't always come from a new piece. Sometimes it comes from deeply understanding what you already have. And that's exactly what Ferrari has done. The most interesting thing is that this advance is not merely technical. It has a very clear tactical dimension. With the unpredictable conditions expected at Interlagos, possible intermittent rain, fluctuating temperatures, gusts of wind, the team that best understands the interaction between tires, downforce and race strategy will dominate. And Ferrari, for the first time in a long time, seems to have that advantage. Not because you have the fastest car, but to have the most adaptable one. And in a championship as tight as 2025, that ability to adapt is pure gold. Furthermore, Hamilton himself has been an active part of this process. Since his arrival at Ferrari, he has pushed engineers to look where they previously did not dare. To question formulas, to review habits. Even his driving style has been a study variable. His way of braking, of conserving tires, of reading the race. Everything has been incorporated into the technical DNA of the SF25. And now, in Brazil, that collective knowledge is about to be put to the test under a global magnifying glass. The question is no longer whether Ferrari can fight Red Bull or McLaren in absolute terms. The question is whether the time has come when, without having to have the best car, they can have the best weekend. And if that happens, then yes, Brazil could not be the end of a speech but the beginning of a resurrection. When Hamilton pronounced that no, when asked if he aspired to a podium this season, the world of motorsports interpreted it as a sentence. A lapidary statement. But not everyone understood it. Because what Hamilton is really doing is not quitting. It is redefining. It is abandoning the language of immediate results to embrace a much more complex, but at the same time more powerful, the language of long-term construction. This attitude is not new in Hamilton, but it is new in the current context. After years at Mercedes, where every race was a battle for victory, his arrival at Ferrari implied something radically different. This is not about maintaining hegemony. It's about building it from scratch. And for a driver of his caliber, accustomed to being at the top, that transition is not trivial. It implies humility. It involves patience. And above all, it involves leadership. When Lewis says he doesn't see the podium close, he isn't demoralizing the team. It's taking pressure off. It is correcting internal and external expectations that are still based on its past, not the current technical reality of the car. Because although Ferrari has made progress, it is still far from having a machine as efficient and constant as the McLaren MCL39 or Verstappen's RB21. And Hamilton knows it. But he also knows something else. That victory does not begin on Sunday but in the culture that is built on Mondays in Maranello. The real message he sends to the world is one of adaptive leadership. To renounce the heroic narrative to embrace the strategic narrative. He knows that words can be tools as powerful as fast laps. That's why when he speaks, everyone listens. Even when what he says sounds at first glance like defeat. Because it is not defeat. It's design. And that design is what seeks to turn Ferrari into a solid force, not just an eventual contender. Because what Hamilton wants is not an isolated podium. What he wants is to establish a platform from which the team can fight consistently for years. He's playing a game that goes beyond the 2025 championship. He's planting the seeds for 2026 and beyond. But you can't ignore the symbolic load of where and when he is saying this. Brazil is not just any place. It is where Hamilton has experienced both glory and suffering. It is where he has sealed world titles, he has made impossible comebacks, he has been hailed as one more by the local public. And it is there, on that same stage, where he chooses to make his most sincere statement. Not on a neutral circuit, not in the middle of the season, but in the South American temple where the emotional and the sporting merge like nowhere else on the calendar. Because if this process is complete, if Ferrari manages to interpret and execute the plan that Hamilton is helping to write, then we are not seeing the farewell of a legend, but the genesis of an even more legendary second act. And now that you know everything, what do you think Lewis Hamilton is really doing with Ferrari? Are we facing a master long-term redemption strategy? Or is it simply the resignation of a champion who has realized that his time at the top could be coming to an end? Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.